everyone, Callum from Cagefront here. Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. Now, I want to say a happy new year to everyone watching this. Thank you for all the support that you've given me through 2024, and I also hope that 2024 was a really good year for you, and it was a very good year for the UFC. So let's see what 2025 really has to offer, and in this video, we are going to be predicting the 2025 end of year champions in every single division, both men's and women's division. We are going to be predicting who has the best chance of going through this whole entire calendar year, and by this time next year, they will be the champion. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, kicking it off with flyweight, I am not going against the grain because you guys know exactly what I think if you've seen my videos in 2024 of Alexandre Pantoja at UFC 301 against Urseg and at UFC 310 against Kai Asakura. This guy is looking absolutely unbeatable at the moment. He is improving performance after performance. And granted, he is going to be 35 in this calendar year, so there is that 35-year-old curse, which in title fights, it's 2-25 at the moment. 2 wins from Tyron Woodley and then 25 losses across the board for people that are aged 35 or over in title fights that are between 125 pounds and 170 pounds. So there is that curse there, but if anyone's going to be able to break it, it's going to be Alexandre Pantoja because the guy is not slowing down. He absolutely dominated Kai Asakura, and he, obviously being at his prime age range at 34, there are possibilities for him to fight guys like Kai Kara France, who is younger and very fast, but Pantoja, just the way he is performing, I think that he just outworks the statistic of that 35-year-old curse because he's got the speed, he's got the durability, he's got the chain wrestling, and most importantly, he's got the fight IQ. He is very, very impressive, very patient, and he just goes when he needs to go when it comes to that wrestling and obviously that striking, those wild just combinations with those hooks where he generates power on. And then along with Kai Kara France, who's there's possibly Davison Figueiredo as well, which Davison cutting down to flyweight now after spending so much time at bantamweight, it's just going to be even harder for him. Can he do it? I think he can do it, but is he going to beat Pantoja this time? I strongly think not. Pantoja is just so ahead of the game at the moment. He's beaten Moreno like 3 times. He has just cleared that division almost completely, and that is just thanks to the ability to absolutely dominate wherever the fight goes. Versing Kai Kara France, I think that chain wrestling control style that he has will completely outwork Kai Kara France. There is a chance that Kai could take him out in the first or second round with the hand speed, but other than that, I just don't really see it. I think the longer that goes, the more Pantoja is just going to be able to dominate. And then obviously Figueiredo is a complete stretch within itself to even get done because him getting down to flyweight while also not getting any younger. The guy's like 36 to 37 years old now. It's just not really a possibility. So I don't see any clear options there. So Pantoja is going to retain his flyweight title by the end of 2025. He has just improved immensely every time he has fought. Now, moving on to bantamweight, this is a saucy one for the channel because a lot of you guys in the comment section of my undefeated fighters tier list have been going off on whether Merab or Umar are going to be able to win at UFC 311, and it's definitely a controversial one and it's definitely a close fight. Do not get me wrong, but I'm going to be taking Umar Nurmagomedov in that fight in January at UFC 311. I think Merab does get dethroned. Do not kill me in the comments, but I do believe that Umar is going to be able to do it. I think Umar just has the offensive threat there. Granted, Merab is a wrestling machine. He is extremely driven with that cardio. He is a control-based freak, an absolute monster. But Umar, he has the ability to counteract Merab's style. He has a Sambo base himself, whereas Merab, all these guys that he's gone against bar Henry Cejudo, they all don't have wrestling bases. Now, Umar has that wrestling base, but he has a very strong submission-based threat that Henry Cejudo does not. And Umar can submit off his back. He can submit on top. And not only that, Merab going against a guy like Umar who's not scared to get taken down and will take those risks on the feet to strike with the kickboxing ability that he does have. He offensively outworks Merab on the feet. So offensively, I see Umar being able to deal with Merab's wrestling to a pretty strong extent, and I believe that he is going to be able to take him out on the feet. I think he's going to be the first person to actually be able to chin Merab Dvalishvili. But that being said, do not hate me. That is just my prediction. I think Merab is a great fighter, but I do think that Umar is going to be able to get that one done. Now, if he does get that one done, obviously that's UFC 311. That is in January. That means Umar will have another fight, most likely in 2025, because I don't see Merab dealing a bunch of damage or anything like that realistically. He's just going to really want to try and control Umar. But looking past that, who is going to be the next fight if Umar has to fight someone else? It's most likely, let's be honest here, it's going to be Sean O'Malley. Now, Sean O'Malley, he is the guy that has the stock where he can just literally fight again for the title. He has that stock, he has that name value in the UFC, and he will be able to get that fight. O'Malley versus Umar is a humongous fight because that's kind of like a shadow of McGregor versus Khabib, and if they can make any storyline even remotely close to that, they will do it. Now, O'Malley, with his kickboxing based style, easily one of the most dangerous, one of the most technical strikers in that division without a doubt. But does O'Malley have the ability to stop the Sambo-based style of Umar Nurmagomedov? Possibly, but will his striking take a hit in terms of him fully extending with those striking combinations like he did against Chito Vera in this fight? I think that he is going to struggle with that just like he did against Merab. Look at the striking comparison of O'Malley versus Vera, how much he went off and how fluid he was with that striking compared to O'Malley versus Merab. Merab shut O'Malley down. Now, I believe that Umar Nurmagomedov can basically do the exact same thing to O'Malley, but then also Umar has that offensive threat to possibly take O'Malley out on the feet, where O'Malley not only needs to be wary defensively of his takedown defense, but needs to be wary of his strike defense as well. And I think that he will be able to overload O'Malley and win that fight later in the year, towards the latter end of the year. And then that's where I see him being the champion of the Bantamweight division at the end of 2025. Now, moving up to featherweight, and as much as we've been hearing a lot of talk about Ilia Topuria possibly relinquishing his 145 belt and going up to 155, I am more on the side that that's not going to happen. I think that he is going to keep the 145-pound belt. He has more so stated it recently as well that he is not going to relinquish it, and if he's going to move up, he is going to look for that double champ status. Now, can he get the double champ status in the next calendar year? I don't think so. I don't see it happening because I don't see the Islam Makhachev fight in particular materializing at all, because Islam Makhachev has already fought someone from 145 in Alexander Volkanovski who he had something to gain from. He wanted the #1 pound-for-pound position from Alexander Volkanovski from that fight. If Volkanovski didn't have that, Islam would not be interested in that fight because it's only threatening his throne. I don't see that happening. Now, Ilia, what does he have to offer? Technically nothing. I mean, in relation to that, obviously he's a world-class fighter and it'd be great to have on your resume, but Islam's already beaten a pound-for-pound #1, and he is now pound-for-pound #1, and he is focusing on his division, and he wants his crack at double champ status, which is obviously very hard because Bilal Muhammad at the moment is the holder of the 170 belt, and he does not want to fight a teammate, which is fair enough. But Ilia, looking at that fight, at least in the next calendar year, I don't see that happening. So 145, we are focusing particularly on that. 145, him staying there, he is not getting beaten. We have two options. We have Alexander Volkanovski for the rematch, and we have Diego Lopez in this calendar year. Looking at those two, Alexander Volkanovski, love him to death, easily one of my favorite fighters, if not my favorite fighter. looking at that fight, I just don't have high hopes for him within that, with the accumulative damage that he has taken from Islam and Topuria. They were both very bad knockouts, and he is getting old, 35 to 36 years old, and Ilia Topuria is literally in his prime. Volk doesn't have that one-hit KO power to take him out either. He has to use technical capabilities and wrestling, which Ilia can combat him very well absolutely everywhere. And if those guys get into exchange and they're both hitting each other, the one that's going to drop is most likely going to be Volkanovski, which is really sad to say, and I want him to get that title back, but I just do not see it happening. Then the other option is Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes, very, very fast, very offensively sound, on the feet, on the ground. He has a lot of momentum. He is dangerous. But going against someone like Ilia, he will literally have to find that opportunity, I think, in that first round to catch Ilia out, possibly just being, you know, lackadaisical, just complacent, and finding an opening where he can take him out, just like he did against Brian Ortega, although he woke him up with the second shot in that first round. There is that possibility for Lopes, but ultimately, on a grand scale in that fight, the opportunities that Diego Lopes would have to win that fight compared to Ilia, I'm going to be taking Ilia Topuria there. His wrestling, just his overall wrestling and his control is better than Diego Lopes's. Obviously, the submission threat from Lopes off his back is very dangerous, but I just don't see any real openings there that Ilia won't prepare for, realistically. Ilia, especially with that technical boxing as well, compared to Diego Lopes's strike defense, which is the main issue. I think in a 5-round fight, the way that they both pace themselves, that just that fast pace, I think that Ilia would be able to take Diego Lopes out too. I am pretty confident with this one. He is a Mission Impossible fighter. I pretty much think that he is looking unstoppable at the moment, and by the end of 2025, Ilia Topuria will be the 145-pound champion still. Now, moving up to lightweight, similar to featherweight, just like Ilia Topuria, I'm going to be taking Islam Makhachev in the lightweight title picture by the end of 2025. The guy is about 33 years old, so he is still right in his prime age range, and he is just looking unstoppable. He will definitely retain his belt into the next calendar year. He is just rounding out his game so much. He has the wrestling to match and pretty much out-grapple Arman Tsarukyan, and his gas tank is very, very good overall, considering how many 5-round fights he's had now and just the wars that he's been in. And looking at him against Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 311 especially, he has the better striking, the technical striking. The kickboxing that he has is seriously impressive, very impressive. He was outboxing Dustin Poirier at UFC 302. Arman, obviously the guy has great wrestling, great transitions. I think Arman will be a champion, but just not at UFC 311. He's got all the time in the world because he's mid-20s, but the striking, like, he has the power, but the technical ability, he's going to get overrun by Islam Makhachev on the feet, especially with that pacing. Islam is so used to the pacing of the 5-round fight and using the kickboxing there to his advantage so well consistently through those 5 rounds. Because looking at him against Volkanovski in that first fight, he was dying by the end of the 5th round. His heart rate was at like 200 BPM. He was absolutely on death's door in that bloody fight. Now, looking at him in the Dustin Poirier fight, he was just so much more consistently adept going through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. He was not slowing down pretty much at all, and that's where I think he will do really well against Arman in those later rounds if it gets there. Now, if he gets through Arman and we're looking later on through the year, the most likely option is going to be that rematch that we're finally going to get of him versus Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is an absolute beast. Absolutely love the guy to death. He is so entertaining, and I really hope he does get the title back, but in a rematch, it's just going to be much of a muchness. I think it's going to be the exact same, because Charles, at the end of the day, the wrestling defense and just that wrestling pedigree is a night and day difference compared to Islam in a con. Islam is just so much better with his control, with his wrestling, with his strength, and that's what he got. That's what got Charles out of there the first time, and I would not be surprised if it happens a second time. It will most likely either be a submission or a KO TKO finish. I just don't see Islam losing the belt anytime soon. Now, moving on to welterweight, this is definitely one of, if not the most difficult one to pick. But looking at the Ian Garry fight, Shavkat Rakhmonov had a torn MCL, which completely hindered his movement. He still won that fight, and I think that he is going to be the one to take the title. I think that he is going to be the one to beat Belal Muhammad. He clearly has solid submission defense and a very good chin. He's got the durability, which we know Belal doesn't really have the power as well to get him out there. And I do believe, most importantly, the offensive threat on the feet, even with the submissions as well, and the counter wrestling to deal with Belal is going to be good in that matchup. I think just the effectiveness of those specific attributes is going to get him either a finish late in that fight, or he's going to be able to win a decision off of damage. I just don't see Belal Muhammad being able to control Shavkat Rakhmonov for 25 minutes. He's got good striking, don't get me wrong, but Shavkat has the power there. He has the ability to clean him up in comparison to Belal being able to completely clean Shavkat up. I just don't see it happening. Shavkat has those tools, like the very, very powerful hooks. He has overhands. He has like spinning heel kicks as well. He has very dangerous one-hit KO based techniques, whereas Belal just accumulates damage and volume over time more so, and just really drowns fighters out with that wrestling. Because the only time we've really seen him really just spray someone is obviously Sean Brady, but that was even just accumulative damage as well. And the Sean Brady effect is not happening to Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't see that happening. Now, with the fight with Belal, I think that could happen around April. I think looking at Belal and his injury with his foot, making sure that's fully recovered, then going through a full training camp, we're probably looking around April or May, I do believe, for those guys. And then if that fight happens then and he wins the title, it's kind of hard to say, because Shavkat is on that timeline of fighting at the end of the year and then also fighting in the middle of the year. So if he's fighting in the middle against Belal and beats Belal, we could either be looking at him fighting in December or possibly January. So we might only get one fight from him. But looking at the other options, say if we did have him fight in December, we obviously have a number of options there for the first title defense. We've got Leon Edwards, we've got Kamaru Usman, we've got JDM, we've got Sean Brady, we've got bloody Joaquin Buckley, Ian Garry, because all of them are pretty much in title eliminator positions. I mean, Ian Garry's just lost, but if he goes and takes someone out like Colby Covington or something like that, then he could easily just shoot up for a title. It just depends on the next performance, because it is business at the end of the day. But realistically, in all honesty, I think I would take Shavkat as a favorite pretty much against absolutely all of them. I know that's probably a underappreciated opinion for sure, because there are holes in his game, in Shavkat's game. Obviously the strike defense specifically, pardon me, there is that, but the strike defense, I think, against someone like JDM is going to be a big issue. But then JDM, the takedown defense on the other side compared to Shavkat's submission and wrestling based offense is going to be a bigger issue. So Shavkat pieces up nicely against these opposition. I mean, Kamaru Usman, there is a possibility for him to beat Shavkat, but you got to remember the guy's legs are getting chewed to bits. He is getting a lot older, and I don't feel as confident in Usman getting that title back as I did like last year. You know, time moves quickly, and I don't see that happening. And the other guys, Shavkat, I strongly believe he can pretty much deal with. The only one I can really see is if Leon Edwards comes out with like a Hail Mary kick that he had against Usman or something like that, and is just completely on for 25 minutes with his kickboxing and his takedown defense. That's the way that it could get done. Or if JDM has pretty much a bulletproof takedown defense, then JDM could definitely win, because he could definitely outpoint Shavkat on the feet. But aside from that, I just don't see anyone getting it done against Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I think that he is going to be able to hold the title at the end of 2025. Now, moving up to middleweight, I think it's just a matter of time before Khamzat Chimaev, this absolute killer, becomes a champion in 2025. And I think 2025 is just the time to do it, because his main concern is obviously Dricus Du Plessis with the strength that he has, and Dricus has the offensive ground game there. He's like 11-0 or 11 with 1 with submissions. He is very, very good there, but Dricus has never fought someone who is so transitionally adept on the ground. Just his wrestling, the chain wrestling that Khamzat has, is probably honestly the best we have ever seen. He is absolutely incredible when it comes to wrestling within MMA. And I don't really see any other option aside from Khamzat finishing the fight early, or possibly just towards the middle of the fight. I think that he just has that transitional capability and that strength to take Dricus out. And even on the feet, Khamzat is very actually good on the feet. He is very good. He can hold his own without a doubt. He's durable as hell. He's got good striking, but he obviously leaves himself open. But big issue is, which we all know, is his cardio. Can his cardio hold up if he gets dragged into deep waters against Dricus? That's a possibility where he could lose. But looking at Khamzat against Whitaker, man, holy crap. I seriously, I just can't go against Khamzat. I think he is just so good, and I think that he is going to be a title holder for quite a long time. And if he gets the title and moves up to light heavyweight, if light heavyweight's lacking the amount of wrestlers like it is now, the guy could definitely be a double champion depending on his activity. Now, moving up to light heavyweight, not another change, not going against the grain here. I've got Alex Pereira, but I will say Alex Pereira will slow down in 2025 in this year compared to last year in 2024, because he was so active in literally the whole entire time he's been in the UFC. But the guy is getting older, but he is still an absolute killer, and he's just getting better. But I do think that he will slow down, but him slowing down just gives him a better chance to actually maintain that belt realistically. I think he might have 2 fights this year, and the 2 fights that we'd probably look at is Ankalaev and probably Jamal Hill. If Jamal Hill beats Yuri Prochazka, which I think he probably will, as much as everyone hates that, I think that Jamal does have that technical ability and just pinpoint striking and power to get Yuri out of there. I don't think that unorthodox striking, along with the damage that Yuri has taken on the chin, don't think it's going to be working for him much anymore, at least at light heavyweight anyway. Looking at Pereira going against Ankalaev. Ankalaev has obviously been talking a lot of shit. He is a very good fighter. He has a lot of momentum. He hasn't lost since he lost to Paul Craig, and he's got power as well. He is a dangerous boxer, but the thing that I hate about Ankalaev is the leg kick checks. He will get his legs absolutely chewed to fucking bits by Pereira. Pereira will probably try and take that deep, completely immobilize him, go into the 3rd or 4th round like he did against Khalil Roundtree, and absolutely pick Ankalaev apart and just knock him out. That's what I see happening, because Ankalaev, he could barely stand against bloody Jan Blachowicz, and if he's not standing against Jan Blachowicz, Pereira will literally cut his legs off. So I just don't see him being able to survive that. I think that Pereira will maintain that belt through rounds 3 to 4 in that fight. I'd probably say that fight will probably happen probably, I wouldn't be surprised if it is around March or April, to be honest, because Pereira's been out for a little bit since UFC 307. So looking around that 314, 315, that would make a lot of sense in terms of positioning that card. Now, if he's fighting Jamal Hill, come on, man. Come on. Jamal Hill's not beating Alex Pereira. The whole world will go insane if Jamal Hill does, but yeah, no. Jamal's just, Alex Pereira is living rent-free in that guy's head. It's just going to be the same shit. Jamal will get knocked out. I just don't see him having that technical capability or anything. He's just not a good fighter. Like, I mean, Pereira is just better on the feet. Jamal has no ground game, and honestly, Pereira probably has a better ground game than him anyway. So yeah, Pereira finishes him by whatever way he wants. Now, moving up to heavyweight, and I'm sure most of the UFC fan base is with me here.
Tommy Aspinall. Tommy Aspinall is the most dangerous heavyweight we have ever seen. Look, honestly, I just don't see there being any other way. I will not believe that Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones will actually happen until I see them in the cage together. Obviously, Dana White has said that it's 100% going to happen. I don't care. We need to see them in the cage for that to happen, because there is a million possibilities as to why that statement could not be true. Not saying that Dana White's a liar or whatever. I'm just saying that from either end of Jon Jones or Tom Aspinall, some shit will probably happen and Jon Jones will not fight him. Let's be honest here. There's been a lot of shenanigans and everything that's been creeping under Jon Jones's skin. And the guy's going to need a shit ton of money to take that fight. He's going to need upwards 30 mil plus to be taking that. He has the high ground. He has the absolute bragging rights and demands from the UFC to get what he wants for them to get him back in the cage, without a doubt. And that is the biggest fight that can be made in 2025, without a doubt. That is the most insane fight if it can happen. Now, say if Tom Aspinall, he fights Jon Jones, let's just say it happens, fights him around, it's probably going to have to be in like the middle of the year. Probably International Fight Week, because Jones obviously didn't take any damage against Stipe Miocic. Aspinall has been out for a while. He's been out since UFC 304, so Aspinall will wait if he has to, but if he's waiting a year, it's not the worst. He's pretty much is waiting a year. 303 to 304 was International Fight Week to them when he fought, so he's going to be waiting like 13 months. So if he's waiting that, I think he'll be fine. There's no issue there. Going into International Fight Week, which will probably be like UFC 316, 317 possibly. Going into one of those cards, International Fight Week, they fight Tom Aspinall. I believe will chin Jon Jones within 2 rounds. He is just way too fast. The speed difference there is just ridiculous. Obviously, Jon Jones is arguably the GOAT. He has great wrestling, great striking at range, but Aspinall is big. He has reach himself. He is a lot quicker than Jones when it comes to heavyweight. Obviously, weight translation. On the ground, Aspinall has jiu-jitsu as well. I don't see an avenue physically where Jon Jones is going to be able to take Tom Aspinall out, because he doesn't have one-hit KO power either, and that's what Tom Aspinall has, and that's what he will use to beat Jon Jones. Now, aside from that, Ciryl Gane had a pretty lackluster performance against Volkov. I don't see Ciryl Gane has the speed to match Tom Aspinall for sure, but the ground game, Tom Aspinall will probably just swallow him. I don't see Ciryl being able to survive Tom Aspinall on the ground. Pavlovich, beaten before. Done. Volkov, beaten him before as well. I just don't see that happening. If Volkov does it, I think Volkov will probably just get chinned. Tom Aspinall is pretty much just unbeatable at heavyweight. He'll definitely be the title holder by the end of 2025, whether he fights Jon Jones or not. Simple as that. Now, moving into the women's divisions, we have Zhang Weili. She is going to maintain the title. She is going to have that title defense against Tatiana Suarez. I'm calling it now at UFC 312. I think that Tatiana is good. She is good. She has very good wrestling. Don't get me wrong. She's undefeated. She's got momentum in a sense, which is where I think it's a bit skewed, because yes, she's undefeated, but Tatiana's had a lot of health problems. She's been very sporadic throughout her career in terms of performances and activity, and she hasn't fought the best of the best. She beat Jessica Andrade, but Jessica Andrade is extremely 50-50. She either wins emphatically or she loses badly, so I don't really see that as being like the top of the top. And I just think that Weili, with the experience that she has in the 5 rounds, the striking that she has, I think is better than Tatiana's as well, and the grappling. I think that Tatiana will outdo Weili on the ground, but I think that Weili has the ability and the maneuvers to get back up. She is just so experienced now. She's fought girls like Rose Namajunas, who's very quick on the ground, transitionally very adept as well. I just don't see clear avenues for Tatiana Suarez to take out Weili unless she is literally controlling Weili for 5 whole rounds, or unless she can somehow sneak a submission in there with Weili being complacent on the ground. I think that Tatiana ultimately is a tough test, but I do think that Weili is very good, well-rounded. I think that she'll get it done, and I think that this will probably be her last full year as a champion. She's going to be turning 35. And going against girls like Yan Xiaonan and everything like that, I think, and Verna Jandiroba as well, I think that those fighters eventually will become champion, and she probably will get dethroned, but I think it'll be somewhere around 2026, possibly early 2026, when she's really hitting that latter end of her career. It's being such small weight class, and those, obviously that speed translation against other fighters that are younger is just so much more apparent, and I think that that's where Weili will struggle. And Yan Xiaonan coming up a bit more, obviously she's not as young, but she still has the power and everything there, and she did look good against Weili in that fight that she did have against her at UFC 300. Now, Weili, going against either of them now in this calendar year, I think she could beat either of them, to be honest. She can outstrike Verna Jandiroba, and I think she can hold her own on the ground and not get submitted. But very dangerous fights for Weili regardless. She's one of the ones that's going to be pretty tricky for her to hold the title. She's not a clean slate for her going through 2025, but I think that she can get it done just with the strength in the schedule that she's had, how well-rounded she is, and just the experience that she has overall. Now, moving on to flyweight women's, unfortunately for Valentina Shevchenko, I think in her next fight, she is going to be losing the belt to Manon Fiorot. I think Manon Fiorot, she is really good, like really good. She is very strong. She's got a Taekwondo black belt. She completely threw Erin Blanchfield all around the shop, 50-45'd her. She's like 7 or 8-0 in the UFC. She destroyed Tabitha Ricci when she fought her. She has just got such a good physical presence in flyweight. She is a very, very good fighter. She could move to bantamweight and do very, very well there as well. Honestly, she could probably be she could be a double champion, to be honest. I'm that confident in her. She is just extremely good, very well-rounded all over the shop. And she's on the older side. She is 34, but Shevchenko is like 36. And I think that when it comes to fighting Shevchenko, when they point fight, I think that Manon Fiorot just has a few more tools and a bit more reach and just physicality against her. And Shevchenko is good in the clinch usually, but against someone like Fiorot, no one is beating her in the clinch. She is so strong. She will outmuscle Shevchenko. I mean, if Shevchenko is going against Tyler Santos and that's being super competitive, Manon Fiorot, I think, will have a very good day at the office in that sense, because she is more hungry. She hasn't had a title. She doesn't have much time left. She's undefeated in the UFC. She is good pretty much everywhere, and I can see her getting that fight done over 5 rounds. There could possibly honestly be a finish, possibly on the feet for her in that fight. I think she gets that done. That's going to be later on, I will say, probably around maybe March, April, possibly May. And if that gets done, I don't think either of them will come out unscathed. Obviously, Shevchenko is a fantastic, amazing fighter, flyweight GOAT, arguable women's MMA GOAT. So it's going to be tough for sure. And I think with the damage that could possibly be taken, I think Manon Fiorot will get the title, but she will not defend it in 2025, but she will obviously remain the 2025 flyweight women's champion. And last and least, we have the bantamweight women's division. It is the sloppiest division, the division that needs the most help, and Kayla Harrison is one of the last hopes for it. I think that Kayla Harrison will fight Juliana Pena. She will beat Juliana Pena. Pena didn't even beat Raquel Pennington. That was a bullshit decision. I think she will beat Juliana Pena, and then towards the end of the year, she will go up against Norma Dumont, and I think Norma Dumont will beat Kayla Harrison, and I think Norma Dumont will be the title holder at the end of the year. Now, Norma Dumont, I will say, is also a hope for that division. She is very entertaining. She did a fantastic job against Irene Aldana at UFC 306. Absolutely butchered her face, and Norma Dumont's stock has only risen since then. And going stylistically against Kayla Harrison, Norma Dumont has very good counter wrestling. She is very good on the ground herself offensively, and Kayla Harrison offensively on the ground and with her judo, she is good, but the striking department is not that impressive for her. She gets hit. She definitely gets hit, and if we have Norma Dumont coming through like she was against Irene Aldana against Kayla Harrison. Man, it could not be a good day at the office for Kayla Harrison. And Norma Dumont's striking is just improving and improving so well over her last few fights. And I honestly think with that striking advantage there and that counter wrestling, I think it's enough to crown her as the champion of 2025 towards the end of 2025. At the end of that year, I think that is the most underrated take, and it's coming out of the women's bantamweight division. So I'm taking Norma Dumont to be the champion. So I think that 2025 will be a pretty balanced year when it comes to and new and still champions, where we're going to have 6 and new champions and then 5 champions that are champions at the moment that will go all the way through until 2026. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this UFC Champions predictions video, and please check out the video on the screen if you want to see more MMA based content, and please like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.